Welcome to week 3 of MPAI 600 here at Georgetown University. Just a couple announcements. Paper 1, your collection strategy is due right now, tomorrow, yesterday, depending on when you're watching this. So I'll have those back to you next week. And then I want to emphasize this again. I mentioned ChatGPT last week. We've had in the school more examples of plagiarism on ChatGPT using ChatGPT. And I'll say two things. One, I will know if you're doing this, if you're cheating on ChatGPT, and apparently all the instructors know. They understand what a generic answer is and what kind of the lack of specificity that ChatGPT has. So I just want to make you aware of that students are getting caught left and right, and just don't do it. So that's number one. Number two, a part of your education is the process of writing, of making an argument, formulating thoughts, putting them in paper, and reading over it to make sure that what you say makes sense and is a strong argument. That is part of your education. You would be shortchanging yourself by just using these AI chatbots to do your homework for you. And again, like I said, I understand that AI is being integrated into all aspects of this program and of things like Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and the normal tools that you use, but it's still not going to substitute the process and analytical thought process that writing brings about. So I want you just to be aware of that going forward. So review of last week. We talked about requirements, and you integrated them into a collection plan, and I look forward to what you're going to have this week. And then the second part, we talked about intelligence traps and biases we all exhibit. And again, key issues, confirmation bias, where you come to a conclusion based on one piece of evidence, and all subsequent evidence is used to fashion that conclusion. There's mirror imaging, where we assume an adversary or friend or someone else we're looking is going to have the same objectives, same goals, same desires, same processes that we do. That's again a classic mirror imaging example. And you see many of these biases in the Confessions that I think is a great documentary, and I hope it got your blood boiling when you watch that, seeing the great injustice that was previewed here. So we saw these biases in the Confessions. Again, classic confirmation bias to the extreme, where they had the theory that it was Joe Dick and these other Navy sailors that were responsible for the killing, and then they kept fashioning evidence, corroborating evidence, coming up with ridiculous stories like Joe Ballard coordinated with these, got together and decided to commit this rape and murder. Again, this is confirmation bias taken to the extreme, just to confirm their original theory. Vividness bias. I think, I don't know if it was Charlotte or someone talked about this in detail, about the Confessions being played in open court, and that having an impact on the jury for all of these cases. I can talk to you about DNA, motive, and all those other aspects of a criminal case, but if I am playing tape that says, I got in, I broke the door down, I came there, I pinned her to the ground, I then raped her, and then I watched someone else rape her, and then I slit her throat, and you're saying that in the voice that you saw in that video, that's going to appeal to a jury far more than DNA, trace evidence, time windows, etc. So, again, classic vividness bias, and Detective Ford knew that when he conducted his interrogation and what would play in front of a jury. Negative evidence. And again, we talked about how everyone focuses on the positive evidence. There's a confession, etc., and that's why he's guilty. But if you're going to look at a criminal case or any other intelligence issue, you have to flip it on around. You can't just say he confessed and he's a killer. You have to say, if he is the killer, why are we not seeing motive, trace evidence, DNA, proper timelines, etc. Those are the questions that need to be asked, as opposed to focusing on what the positive evidence is. And then clientelism. You're going to see this in future case studies that we do, but in this case, there was enormous pressure on the detectives to solve this case. No one wanted in the community a murder to go unsolved and the murderer to be wandering around. So if you're under those pressures, then you're going to come up with bad evidence and cause bad outcomes that you saw before, all to please essentially your client, which in this case is the community of Norfolk. So you saw, again, many of these biases. I think most of you brought these up in your discussion in the confessions case study. And I want to leave you with a couple of things. One, Georgetown values. I don't, Georgetown's a Jesuit school, it's a Catholic school. I don't know if anyone here is religious. I don't care if it matters. I doubt that had an impact on your decision to come here. But the school likes to impose some sort of idea of justice going forward. And you saw a gross injustice occur in this case. And before you blame it on Detective Ford, just keep in mind there were a whole sorts of systemic failures, from prosecutors to judges to appellate courts to appellate judges to all the way up to the governor's decision, where they didn't look at it from a justice perspective. They didn't look at that these people were being wrongfully convicted. And hopefully, as students that are in this program and students of Georgetown, you can at least think about these things, especially if you're in a position where you can put someone in prison for a long period of time, that you're doing it with a sense of justice and trying to not just check the box to get somebody arrested, but understand humanity in this system. So I kind of want you to think about that going forward, the impact of Georgetown values. And then the last thing I want to say about this case study that a student a few years brought up that I think is interesting. Good people suffer from these biases: confirmation bias, vividness bias, etc. Normal people can have these biases, can have these analytical flaws, and you're going to see that in future case studies. But this is not that case. This is a case of a bad person, an evil person in the sense of Detective Ford going out and doing evil things and not caring for the humanity of these people. So I don't always have an answer on that. I tend to lean, you can't just pin this on Detective Ford because, again, prosecutors, judges, appellate judges, etc., all kind of fell into this trap. Wasn't. It's hard to say that all those people are evil. I guess maybe you can make that argument, but again, you can't just blame this on one evil individual doing this. So I leave you with that for this case study. And then for week 3 preview, again, 2 case studies: strategic surprise, Pearl Harbor and Yom Kippur War. And the question is, as you're going through the readings and the lectures, ask, where were the failures that occurred? Where do you think the failures occurred? Did it occur in collection? Did it occur in analysis? Did it occur in policy interface? And did it occur for policymakers failing to act? So ask where those failures occurred. And then what were there underlying circumstances, just bad luck that happened that allowed for both at Pearl Harbor and Yom Kippur War for the Americans and Israelis to be caught flat-footed. And just the readings and documentaries, let me go to the module. So you'll be in Module 3, Strategic Surprise. So I want you to read the 3 chapters in the doll, and then read the chapter or the paper on the enigma, the anatomy of Israelis' intelligence failure. Watch the documentary. This is actually part 1 of a 3-part documentary. In fact, just watch part 1, and part 1 you only really need to watch the first half hour or so. about the Yom Kippur War. So you'll watch my lectures, and then the discussion posts again, average about 250 each. What were the warnings that were missed prior to Pearl Harbor? And then what were the primary reasons that the Israeli intelligence missed the Arab invasions in 1973? And I will say that for your discussions, it's okay to be a little bit loosey-goosey and try and come up with ideas and test them. But what I want for your papers when you do them is to really nub down. All right, for example, this you might give 3 or 4 examples in your discussion point where the Israelis failed. On your paper, I want you to maybe choose 1, possibly 2, and drill down on those arguments. So that's what I'm looking for this week. And if there's any questions or issues, let me know.